I'm a low-tech man in a high-tech world.
When mallard ducks see these decoys, they will be mesmerized, hypnotized, and paralyzed.
Bottom line,
Phil Robertson has died. The person who started Duck Commander. The unmistakable face of Duck Dynasty died on May 26, 2025. The health of Phil Robertson was quickly getting worse as time ran out. The star of Duck Dynasty is Phil Robertson. Has died. The show came after Robertson's family for 11 years, from 2012 to 2017. While they were shooting with his Duck Commander. Duck Dynasty star does business in Louisiana. Phil Robertson has died at the age 79, just a few months after his battle with Alzheimer's disease was shown to the people, and then there was another shock when the will was read. The family broke down in tears. Cried, not because of the loss, but because of what he left behind. The cash is split with a personal message, each letter written by hand left family members stunned over the multi-million-dollar wealth wasn't just a number. That last message from America's well-known conservative dads who once said bad things about him now had to be quiet. People who used to follow him. They couldn't hold back their tears at all. Began when the will was Dad went to be with God today. Willie Robertson, the CEO and oldest son of Duck Commander, wrote on X, "And we miss him, but we're happy that he's gone. Set up everything," and the text was with a simple picture of Phil's with one hand on a Bible. Right before he died, and it wasn't just the pain of a split that caught the attention of millions of. Getting people's attention was what inside the lawyer's office while the family insiders say that the will was opened. People who know him well in West Monroe. The reading took place behind closed doors with his wife Kay and their kids. The daughter of Alan Jace Willie and his Jeep Phyllis was there. The will was more. It wasn't just a split of goods. It was a living will made by a man who knew what each family member what they didn't have and what they would use to make their lives different for good. Phil Robertson has a net worth of thought to be between $10 million and $15 million. The cash comes from a number of places. Duck Commander, Duck selling books and videos about Dynasty deals and private information. That money, but the numbers aren't the unique thing about each share of. He has a lot of money and a letter made by Phil himself telling each child why he left it to them. There are parts that were written straight to having each of his kids talk about their childhood, their vows, and their blunders and what he thinks about their growth. Wife of more than 50 years was given full control of the main Louisiana will and a lot of money to pay for it. Of Alan, Phil's kid son, who used to be a priest, was given ownership Phil has collected for a long time. There is religious writing and a steady money from book sales. Jake and Jeff got equal shares in Duck Commander, who is also responsible for running a different account that is more focused. Brand Phyllis Phil's the girl he didn't have the right to have, recently got married again, was given some real dead body and a note of apology, but most among them Willie, who had been with his father during the peak of Duck Dynasty, was given the majority of the ownership stake together with the duty for keeping up with what Phil called the faith, brand and history of the family. There is more and more talk about how much the Robertson family is really worth. Some media have put the family has a $100 million wealth. You include copyrights for brands and land rentals and idle income from Robertson brand goods. When my dad talked, but my brothers and I didn't. I need to stop, Jace Robertson said in a Phil made a special podcast after the funeral. Many things will live on because of Robertson. Piece of paper, it was the last word. Written with a simple life in mind, candor and a sometimes controversial unmistakable love. And when once his reputation was set, his family did not cry. Just because they got something, but because they knew what they had lost. Phil Robertson is known for more than just a businessman or a reality TV star. A lot of Americans see him as an without giving in voice of original, one thing that has put conservative ideas, putting him at war with both Hollywood and the major news outlets. In 2013, in an interview, Phil was honest with GQ magazine about how he feels about homosexuality. What he said wasn't he used weak words when he quoted the Bible as it's something that goes against what God planned. Right away, this comment caused there was a media problem with the A&E channel, which he was briefly kicked off of Duck Dynasty. From the show, a lot of political groups criticized and asked people to stop buying from, and millions of people were just as angry. A lot of fans took to social media to stand up for religious freedom with the word "Why Stand With" went viral quickly, which forced A&E to act. To back down in a week or less. Duck sales Commander goods sold through the roof while conservatives saw him as a sign of conservatives praised him for being backwards. A shield of people against atheism that was getting in the way of American. A few years later, Phil made it a waves again when he told them his shocking views. He said in a video call that for guys, getting married young, by age 15 is best, 16 to make sure that traditional jobs in the family, even though what he said was highly. Phil didn't back down when things got tough. They said modern life was destroying the family unit and that if Americans kept going their own way, Bible society would fall apart. After that he has been interviewed and found to be words that are against abortion and liberal media and never stopped supporting Donald Trump. Ran for office in 2016 and 2020 races. Phil went to a campaign "What's Going On in the South?" 10,000 people with a tone that was like his TV show Tough, unhinged and always telling people to put God first. The end of Duck Dynasty. In 2017. Instead, Phil should not hide himself, switched right away to a style that fit his more loyal fans. He is streaming the show Unashamed that he hosts. Was one of the hosts with his son Jace. The podcasts that people listen to. A group of strict Christians in Phil went on to talk about America there. Sharing religious ideas without being stopped, looking at society and getting ideas. It was also where he met people with similar views. A lot of his personal thoughts were revealed. Before he died, there's no doubt that Phil Robertson stands for what he thinks is right. No giving in, no making concessions. People of faith see him as a rare hero in a politics rule the media world, and when it comes to social norms, he's the worst kind of racism and conservatism intolerance. Both of these facts are true depending on the point of view. After all the noise that's been going on during his lifetime, not many people would have guessed that Phil's start was so humble in the Louisiana swamps. No, there was only one man with a gun on stage. One want to live alone and freedom. Words from the swamp to the top of glory. Phil was born in 1946 and raised in the years after World War II. His family was so poor that they ate food from the swamp, where his father taught him how to hunt. He made his own tools to stay alive and did off the grid a lot, but Phil's strong. He got a sports scholarship because of his skills. Took him to Louisiana Tech University, where he played quarterback for a while before Terry Bradshaw would go on to play in the NFL. Folklore, but Phil didn't go after it. He said no to a professional sports job because it got in the way of his football career. He thought that since it was hunting season, being able to hunt whenever you pleased, not having a deal with someone else's orders, it was a choice that it shocked many, but it laid the base for everything that came after. Phil started Duck for real in 1972. Commander, a company that made things by hand. Duck decoys were what he sold. Not fancy, but it worked so well that hunters from all over the south of the United States, as more people bought them, the business grew. His family slowly but surely, most of all his wife Kay and their kids, were a part of every step. Putting together, shipping, and packing. It wasn't a manufacturing business but a family work to stay alive and keep. The company has kept a tradition going for years. Ran on a small scale. It wasn't until the third son, Willie Robertson, when they got home from school, that things changed. When Willie saw what could happen of the brand, he brought methods up to date, built the picture that increased online sales, and showed Duck Commander on TV. And Duck Dynasty first aired on A&E in 2012. Original plan was to be a funny show about a southern chef hunting family, but the answer was viewers were drawn to. Exceeded hopes to the truth and honesty, dry humor and strong faith beliefs that permeated in each show. There wasn't any script, no complicated setup, just a reel of family living their lives as they would at the time when American reality TV. It was full of shiny shows. Duck at its height, the Dynasty, was a big deal. More than 11 million people watched the show. Duck Commander has the most viewers per show. Goods sold out at the Robertson the family used to make duck food, making $1 million in just a few seasons. But what kept people interested wasn't just not the money but the link between generations, from Grandpa, who was a conservative Phil, to his young kids between 2012 and 2017. Phil not only TV, but he also wrote books and talks all over the United States, and he grew his power through social the news. His book Happy Happy became a best-selling book and his show Unashamed 100 million downloads every month, but he hasn't moved from the top of his career, bought a big house or moved away from his Phil still does the same things he did before. Habits like shooting every season and eat every day with his wife and kids, and this is not reading the Bible before bed, a picture that anyone who has met Phil Robertson can say for sure that he is alive. Just the way people see him on TV, the story of how he got from a house in from the bottom of a pond to the top of reality TV is more than just a way to make money. Telling a story shows how someone, if he stays true to himself and knows places where he stands, can do well without. Bill did not want to change who he is for fame. But his work brought him fame. His family and how he lived as the Duck Emperor dynasty fell, and Bill didn't try to fix it. To stay in the spotlight, he slowly pulled away from the media, leaving the rule over his children, but his is still in every single product record, every text message his family sends. Having seen the rise of fame and luck was not what kept him going. He carried his faith with him, but not on stage. With him from his young, foolish years to his in later years, it was that faith that he held on to, faith through all the storms and turning to Christ. Before Phil Robertson turned into a strict dad and a conservative, he was the show's boss or face. Phil's younger years were a hard time for him. Were not connected to the Bible but to family neglect and rage caused by alcohol. Based on his own report in many talks and writings, Phil lost himself in a crazy life, leaving his wife and kids to drink for long periods of time, binges. It was Kay, who has been his wife since 1966, who didn't leave him. She prayed for every day, kept her tears from falling as they raised their child by themselves, and waited for eventually getting him to turn around. When the change came, Phil walked into a small church in West Monroe with a group of their heart and walked out with a different credo. He changed his mind, brought his faith to him, and never looked back. Didn't just change him. It became the Phil built at the heart of everything he did. Duck Commander, not as a business, but as a part of his Christian faith. The family didn't follow the rule of making money, but on the idea of being of service and following morals he thought were sure. This was clear in every movie and every product. Phil never took his eyes off of any TV show, and let go of that mental anchor even when he were attacked, threatened, or boycotted. When Duck Dynasty became well known and got offers from a lot of big advertising firms came in, but a lot of names were turned down right away. Because Phil didn't want to be linked to putting his name on things that were against in the Bible. He said not to drink or gamble. Pictures that were sexualized. He turned down a $1 million deal just because his line of ads went against his rules. For him, victory wasn't worth it. How much it would cost him to give up his faith. Proud show is where he does his best work. Has shown this in hundreds of scenes of Phil, Jace, and Al Robertson talks about things like marriage and the role of religion in society, of faith in the modern world. These talks bring in millions of people not because of how they make their products but because of what they say without shame. Phil is ready to say bad things about modern, drawing attention to what he sees as it's saying that there needs to be a going back to old ideas. But Phil's faith wasn't that strong, rigid, that he turned down everything he one time took in. Phyllis, an unmarried child daughter, who he only knew when he was almost 70 years old. When he learned the truth, he didn't deny it. In fact, he opened his arms and took the child in, revealed who she was, and made her not a member of his family. This act was not just a job but a real to show that he really lived by the rules for forgiving and forgiving again. Phil's public outings in his last years weren't as well known because he had, but because he paid more attention to living a quiet life with his family. That he was told he had Alzheimer's disease a few months before he died didn't make him less strong. In fact, the most recent podcast shows he made Bill still seemed so calm and clear that many people didn't believe him was going through a neurodegenerative malady. His words were said many times during his last weeks: don't cry when I die, dance, sing, and don't cry. He really did die. It was his family who told him. His wife's children and grandkids not only couldn't hold back tears because their dad had died, but because they knew they had lost a teacher, guide, and man who had lived out everything he preached in a world. Phil, everything moves so fast. Robertson is a unique person who he never lost his faith, coming from a person who made mistakes and got back up and did everything he did without looking back. Everything from his business to his TV to he spent most of his free time with his faith, and in the end, it was that which helped him leave without any trouble. Feels bad about all the morals he had after he died. He left behind were taken care of by most close to him, but one thing was clear, no one could fill Phil's place. As the guardian of faith and custom and family, the end of an age. Phil was been told they have Alzheimer's disease a few months before he died, even though the family didn't tell anyone, right? Away, the signs were there, and he slowly dropped from his podcast, showed up not as often at public events, and he was still spending more time at home. Awake enough to write down the last few episodes of Unashamed where his voice was heard, stayed his own, deep, steady, and referring to death without shame as a what life was like after he died. That the funeral was an intimate event. No press, no stages of honor for not leaders or famous people, just family, close friends and people in the area, people who had been with him through a long time ago. There were no big talks. There were only Bible readings and laughs. With tears and quiet that made one could feel the huge hole that had opened up. Nobody in the family had any money issues or problems that come up after the funeral. Alan, Jace, Willie, Jeep, and Phyllis were all in favor of carrying out Phil's will, each with a being aware of their part not only in taking care of his properties but also in living with the spirit of life he had made Willie play his current job. The company continues to be led by Duck Commander and give the family more, taking media businesses to new platforms. A&E has promised a new TV project. TV show Duck Dynasty. The revival is set to air in June 2025. The show will be about his or her children and grandchildren. Willie and Corey are very important. Phil will no longer show up, but his picture, the ideas and words will live on in Phil's grandchildren, who are in every shot, appeared on the original show for a short time, are now adults and ready to continue. The Phil's is a family business in its own way. His death also marked the end of an age. Was more than just a TV dad. He was the only physical sign of a group of Southern businesspeople who were religious on their own and didn't follow the flow of globalization in culture. With his officially marked the end of that generation, and leaving a hole that even those who are closest to him can't fully change it if you find what you have just